you guys do have a podcast. I don't know if you realize that together. And I listened, you got a great
I don't know
first
if we
guest.
realize that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but you mentioned, most of the time you're interviewing contemporaries, and it's kind of nice when you were talking and when you were
It's
talking
called Rockonteurs, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Rockonteurs.
Yes, called Rockonteurs.
I'm
It's the
very
number
sorry.
one music podcast in Britain.
We're fans.
On the podcast, you did mention like that See Emily Play by Bowie was your entry into Floyd. Who bought pinups, and which one of you, and what was your thoughts on See Emily Play?
I bought pinups.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying, Guy, because I think I've said that before, that See Emily Play was the Bowie version, was the first version I ever heard.
No, I know, and you do. I mean, and there are definite, you can hear the Ronson in the way you play it.
I took there's one particular riff that he plays on pinups in See Emily Play that I still use today in the show. I think Syd Barrett and there was a link between Syd that Bowie picked up on, that Johnny Rotten picked up on, that all of those sort of post-punk chaps you're talking about, Guy, that they all had that element of Syd.
No, absolutely. But also, I think there's the thing which is quite important about pinups, which might get overlooked, which is because when I discovered The Who, which was 70s Who, was a fantastic rock band, and you go back and listen to those old singles, which are amazing, but it's this 60s group. And what Bowie did with pinups was he took all those songs and recorded them the way they would have sounded if they'd been recorded in the 70s. So, it was this brilliant thing for all the kids who were discovering Bowie, that he was saying, here's the music I discovered, and here it is in a way that's palatable to you.
Except his version of Can't Explain sounds like you put the 7-inch on and played it at 33, doesn't it?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, but it is metal. It is metal, and Can't
fantastic.
Explain is a metal song, really. Isn't
it?
So do you bring that to 2022, like the sound of Floyd from the 60s into the now? How's the sound evolved?
Yes and no. I mean, the sounds are a lot more sophisticated, but there's lots of stuff where I know, Gary and Lee both enjoy finding a lot of Lee's old sounds. But then we have, the whole thing is that Dom, because Dom knew Rick and worked with him, but Dom has worked with me for years and he was in the Orb. So he brings that whole psychedelia 2.0 thing. So there's all sorts of slightly ravey kind of electronica elements, which are kind of what Rick would have done if it was later. And it's because if we did a show that just sounded like Pink Floyd in 1967 to modern ears, it's going to be a bit thin, so some of it.
Yeah.
And so there's stuff you play with, there's stuff you leave well alone.
We're when we first got together with Nick, he's sort of, it was a kind of given that we were all very much individuals and musically, and that we would want to express ourselves musically and creatively, and it wasn't a tribute group. We're not Australian Pink Floyd who try and emulate every single note and intake of breath. So I think that freedom that we had with the arrangements and with the parts was from Nick, obviously, because he's allowed to do it. It's his band, he can express it. But the other thing we wanted to achieve in this band was to get across some of Nick's personality. And it is true to say that David and Roger present a rather sort of heavier, lot of it, sort of deep gravitas in their music, and seriousness. And it seems to have got more and more serious as people have looked back on it over the years. Nick is the polar opposite. He's very, very funny guy and very light personality. And I think we wanted to try and get some of his personality across on stage.